Hi, everybody. It's Steve Tarter. Another edition of Tarter Sauce, and with me today,
No
great
fish
pleasure.
sticks, though.
No fish sandwiches. Sorry, Mark. Marc Alghini from WWCT-FM, 99.9 Peoria station. How would you describe your station? Rock and roll, but what did you say?
Controlled freeform.
Controlled freeform. There you go, folks.
You know,
so you'll play REM, something new, Beatles,
and we'll throw in the Marvin Gaye or Muddy Waters or Arcade Fire. It's kind of under the belief of what rock radio used to be, where Sly and the Family Stone was next to the Grateful Dead, and nobody blinked.
Well, I remember, and possibly you do too, top 40 when in the 60s, maybe late 60s, you would have typically a top 40. Carpenters, Jimi Hendrix, Stones, and who's the guy who did the tie a yellow ribbon around the
Tony Orlando.
Tony Orlando. There you go. All those people put together in one list, one station. So
I mean, that's sort of the same kind of vibe. I mean, obviously we're more rock oriented,
right.
but we try to give people a variety. My belief is people don't like one specific type of music. There are people that are like that, but there's others that want to hear a little bit of different stuff. If they want to hear a Jack Johnson, which is more of that surfy folk guy around the fire.
Folk guy. I like that.
Well, he hung out in Hawaii most of his life, or Southern California. But then they also want to hear, a New Order, or they want to hear a Jimi Hendrix. And I think you can put it all together somehow, and we do. I think we do, and we do it well. I think.
We're glad you do, because I think it's needed. I've always thought that, and this is just my own personal opinion, that I never would have thought. Now I'll be honest here. I'm 68, and I went to school at Bradley from 1967 to 72. I took an extra year there. I never would have thought that the music I heard in that period would still be on the radio in a big way. 50 years later? 45 years later?
It's weird that
it's like, because I'm talking about your classic rock, and those are great songs, and you play some of them in your mix, but we've heard a lot of that stuff for many years. Now I know there's always a new audience, but anyway, there's a lot that not.
Well, I always say like a Jimi Hendrix, and I'll even say this on the air a couple of times when we play something they're like fine wine; they age well.
Yeah,
there's certain artists that don't.
Like who?
I would rather not say, but certain radio stations.
Give me an idea.
Well, certain radio stations will play stuff from that era or from the 70s, and to me, when I hear it, I don't think it ages well. I don't think it's relevant. I don't think it's you look at a Jimi Hendrix, it's like a Leonardo da Vinci. What he was doing was so different and so mind expanding. I mean, it's when you look at a Da Vinci, you're like, there's nobody. Somebody may come after him, but it's not Da Vinci, And it's the same thing with a Hendrix or a Beatles or the great. I mean, there's certain artists.
Sinatra, Nat King Cole.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff.
Because you don't necessarily play them, and they played elsewhere. But there's something about timeless things that First of all, they were very well produced.
Yeah.
They were top of the line or state of the art, whatever it was. So they sort of meet that.
But it's the song. It's the song that really. I mean, you look at Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit," which is obviously more my generation. That song is still. It's a masterpiece. It's that fine wine. It's like it's something. It doesn't age. It still sounds good. It still means something to people.
You do a morning show. How long have you been doing the morning show on CT?
4 years this past late July or early August.
Okay.
I'm not good at keeping notes.
but 4 years. So you get up when?
Well, the alarm goes off at 3:30, but
3:30.
sometimes I wake up before that, and sometimes I wake up after that. So
you get to the station when?
I'd say about 4:15. I do a lot of other things because it's the only time nobody's coming into my office. That because I'm also the program director, I have to kind of set the day for the other DJs as well.
Okay.
So I'm usually done with that at about 5, and then I spend an hour working on the morning show.
Right. And is that getting? How do you sort of adapt to that? Very comfortable with it? Is it a arduous routine, or how does that work?
No, it's always it's very, to me, it's something I love. So it's very easy to do. And I'm not like a typical morning zoo radio shock jock or anything like that. So I basically kind of go in there with Roxy and we kind of say, like, let's just be Roxy Baker, who's my co-host. We just do, it's just us. It's like, I don't want us to be a morning zoo or a shock jock or anything like that. I just want to, I think Roxy was moaning yesterday at 6 a.m. and that when she went home to take a nap, she forgot that people actually do work on the street and there was a jackhammer going. That's that's what we all deal with, know, and we tried, we don't want to be radio people, but we're people on the radio. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Now you've and you tell me what you want here, because we don't need to delve into every aspect of your history, but how have you seen radio change in your time? Because you were telling me you first went on a college station.
Yeah, I think a lot of us did that one,
right. But a big one. I mean, a station that had a lot of listeners probably.
Well, at that time, I think, that was all that there was. I mean, FM rock radio had gotten to that kind of stale moment, and they were playing a lot of those bands that don't age well. This was like 1979, and then there was this music kind of coming from all angles, not only from like cities like Chicago or New York, but London. I mean, you're talking about the Clash, you're talking about the Buzzcocks, you're talking about REM. Everything was kind of like, there was this new sound that was coming. And
so it had albums too, right?
Yeah.
That's before CDs.
Way before CDs. And so these college stations, people were looking for that stuff. They were looking for The Cure and all this new music, because that generation before was just none of us liked it,
Right.
So when you hear that, basically there was a DJ on this college station when I was like 13. His name was Chip Beef, by the way.
Chip Beef?
Chip Beef. He's passed away, but he was playing, the Clash and the Buzzcocks and all these bands from England, and I had never heard anything like that before. And I literally looked up their address in the Yellow Pages and got on my bicycle and rode down there and asked if I could sweep the floors. And they kind of said, well, why don't we put you on the air, because we want high school kids to listen.
My goodness.
So then I started doing a Monday afternoon thing, and they just threw me into the pool, basically.
Wow.
And
did you get paid?
No.
Free labor.
But
free
then there was the I'm sleeping over at my friend's house over the weekend. I tell my parents that. And then me and my friend would tell his parents he was sleeping over at my house. And then we would go down and do like midnight to 6 in the morning radio shows on the Saturdays. And
that is
invite our friends over, and we'd have a party. You
have tapes of these shows?
There's a few around. There's definitely a few around.
You'll have to bring those out sometime.
Do you remember, on The Simpsons, there's the kid who works at Krusty Burger. You want fries with that, Mr. Simpson? That was me on the radio at 13. Well, because my voice was changing.
Yeah. Well, that I can see why they might want to have a youthful sound, just from the station standpoint. Because, hey, look, we're appealing to all folks. Now, from that time to this, how would you chronicle radio's progression? Hey, there's an easy question.
Well, I mean, for a long time, it was a lot of independent owners, like the owner we have at WWCT, which isn't like a corporate. I mean, it's a corporation, but it's not
a vast.
It's not a vast that own like 700 radio stations and do contests, and they make it sound like it's local. But in reality, if you look at the rules, you're competing with 700 radio stations around the country to win, I don't know, $100 or something. There's one trip to go see some band, and 700 different radio stations are all competing.
You got a real shot at that.
Yeah. You know, so I mean, and that happened in the 90s where consolidation came, and then, but these groups now have these huge debts.
Right.
I think, you know, radio has changed in that sense where there's all these corporate playlists, and people got turned off by that. And
Right.
I still think they are. I mean, I still run into people going, I've never heard a radio station like this, you know, or haven't heard radio like this since the old days of WWCT.
Right, which I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
really.
you know, where they were kind of a free form, kind of no corporate playlists and stuff like that, or no consultant who said, these are the songs, the 200 songs you're going to play, and don't deviate from this for the next 3 years. You know, where we're constantly refreshing our music and trying to put things in that people may not know.
One thing that you folks do over there, and I think you're expanding it. Apparently, you tell me, new music, local music, area music. You're doing things with Limelight, and I think you've been on probably the podcast before with Thomas talking about that. How is that going? Are you finding that's reaching a big audience?
Well, it is. You know, I think the audience for music was for the music that CT plays was never served here in Peoria up until we kind of changed CT to kind of be this radio station brand. And the wonderful thing is the artists are now discovering that Peoria can be a stop for them, a financial stop for them,
right?
Where they don't have to worry about not selling tickets because that's how they make their money now. In the old days, before Spotify and even downloading music, because no one does that anymore, everybody streams it. But in the old days, you used to tour to sell records.
Right.
Now you give away music to sell tickets. So that's their model has changed because back in the day, that's why tickets were $5 to go see Tom Petty and Elvis Costello on the same bill.
Right.
Because they were just trying to sell records. The profit margin was bigger on selling albums. And now they've got to make money somehow because they're not doing it on album sales.
No.
I think the number one record this week was Sam Smith, and he only sold 100,000 records. And that includes streaming. Where a record like this, even 10 years ago, he would have been expected to sell like 1 million in the first week.
Oh, wow.
So the record industry is contracted. So again, it's all about ticket sales and merchandise. And
when you say the record industry has contracted, wouldn't that hurt a radio station?
Well, there was a time where it hurt the radio station in the sense of they were being more conservative in what they were putting out. I think now with the way they're making money on the streaming model, it's now kind of expanding a bit. But it's harder now for a new band to make it because if you don't make it, it's like a film. Like you don't have a good box office.
Yeah, you're gone.
You're gone. They stop marketing. They pull the plug.
Right, and you're strictly in a local or regional area. New music. Now you guys do that. I mean, you emphasize a Tuesday or
I mean we play new music a lot of new music during the week, and then we expand it on Tuesday.
So the people, what feedback do you get on that?
I think people really enjoy it. You know, we can expand the sound of different styles of music on that. We can test out new bands on that and see what happens. I mean, we're playing a duo out of New York City called Sophie Tucker. And we started them on New Music Tuesday, and they have the song Best Friend. And it was immediate reaction. We don't get, you know, people don't call radio stations anymore like they used to.
No, they don't.
They Shazam a song if they like it, which is an app on your phone, or they'll text us. And we put this record down, and it happened with the record company, and it happened with Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. There's certain records you play, and people just like, who is that? What is that? And so that helps me kind of say, well, maybe this is something we should start
Made an
playing.
impression. Yeah.
It made an impression on a number of people where they took the time out of their busy day to ask or to Shazam or...
You just made me think of something that when you said people don't call radio stations anymore, you probably remember, and I think you were still in the Chicago zone then, but mid-'70s, or maybe you too young because you talk about 79, but John Records, Landecker, Boogie Check.
Yeah, well, I used to listen to that when I was 8, you know,
right.
I mean.
Well, I mean, because I remember that being fascinating. I didn't hear it all the time, but when I did hear it, evening, and people would just come in with 10 seconds. I don't know how long it was, but you'd hear from the audience comments, just all pushed together. I don't know who did it. But it was fascinating because, it was just sort of some of it was silly, some of it was, oh, that's interesting or not. But they were all people calling in a radio station.
Yeah, I mean,
can't do that anymore.
Well,
It'd be a
you
text
can,
hour.
but a lot of these radio stations are voice tracks, so there's not even anybody in the studio to call.
One robot calling another, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, it's, because for some radio stations, they can get somebody to do a 4-hour show and automate a 4-hour show in less than an hour. There's some radio stations where the DJ is in New York and he's, look at Ryan Seacrest. He does like shows and they just go to all these radio stations around America. And,
yeah, that was kind of like, who was it that...
and maybe drop in hey, Peoria, once in a while. I mean, I know there's a few stations in this market that have syndicated radio shows.
I'm forgetting his name. Every week he did the top 40.
Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem. How can I forget Casey Kasem? And that show's still being repeated.
Yeah.
I mean, from the days gone by. I mean, the years 1975 or 8 or whatever it is.
The beauty of radio is that people need to be reminded of those memories. They want, to remember those things, I mean, that's...
I love the show. You guys, it's syndicated, but you guys pick it up. The Bruce Springsteen.
Little Steven,
yeah. Little Steven's Garage?
Underground Garage.
Which you play, when is that?
That's Sunday nights at 10.
Okay.
We had it at 8, and we moved it to 10.
Back. And it's a 2-hour?
It's 2 hours, and he's like the original rock and roller. Like, he loves music. He's one of those guys who like knows his history of music. He loves his guitars. He loves his Ramones, and that's okay with me because I love the Ramones as well. So, and he's just a great historian, and he's got a new album out. And,
I enjoyed that because I don't always catch it, and I'm glad we can tell people when that's on because I think. From 8 to 10, that might make a difference for some folks. But the fascinating thing about him is, I think I didn't realize that he had that part in the Sopranos thing. I mean, I guess I knew that he looked familiar in some ways, but I always enjoyed his character in Sopranos without knowing that he's the guy in the band.
He was in the
and then so
band.
you have a whole new appreciation for him because that was that at the time. That show was on.
It was a legendary show.
Yeah, it was great. And of course, they would do a lot of music in that show. Yeah. I don't know. He had a lot to do with that.
I don't think he really did. I mean, there's people that's their job is to find the music for that scene and work with the director to discover that.
And we were just talking about this on another podcast, but the use of music in advertising is interesting because, and I don't think it's anything new. It's been going on for years, but you'll hear something, it's a 30-second commercial or whatever it is, and, it'll either trigger something or, make you sort of aware of it. And then, of course, it gets repeated. Yeah. So you hear it over and over, and after a while, you're either tired of it or, okay.
Well, that's funny. That band Sophie Tucker that we started playing about 2 months ago, I was talking to the manager saying, hey, dude, this is a really reactive record. Like, and he was like, really? Like, he wasn't sure.
Oh.
And I was, explaining to him, like,
hey,
look,
plays in Peoria, baby.
Yeah, I was like, look, it's Shazamming because I could see, like, the top 10 Shazammed songs in Peoria. And I'm like, look, I've played it 5 times and you're already in the top 10. And he goes, oh, that's good because in 2 weeks, it's going to be the song for the iPhone 10.
Oh.
And so it's the song for the iPhone, the new iPhone 10 television commercial.
And that's, how does that go? Do we know? Or has it been?
Oh, the song?
No,
come on, it's iPhone 10. I mean, that's like everybody waits for that commercial.
Is that out there now?
It is out there now.
Okay.
Like, so, I mean, and that's just only going to help me in the sense that I've been playing this record and it's going to make it more familiar to people. Because people want to be familiar with songs.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's true, too, because I think the one thing that I enjoy about hearing that the album has made a comeback, that the vinyl is back, is that allows one to rediscover or discover, depending on one's age or familiarity, with other songs that are on an album that Neil Young, I remember that one song, but forgot about the other three. Maybe they're not as good or they're not as played as often, but I think that's the beauty of the album.
Yeah, and I think I believe vinyl sales in certain countries have surpassed like downloads, digital downloads.
Good.
And digital downloads is actually shrinking, but vinyl sales have gone up in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and of course people are making albums again.
Well, Jack White now owns, I think, 2 pressing plants, one in Detroit and one in Nashville to press albums, and because he wanted to put out vinyl. And Jack White is like, when it comes to vinyl, and I love this about him because he'll make them very collectible and he will push technology. I think his last solo album he did, there was like a hologram on the thing, and the only way you could see it was if it was spinning. You have to look down, and then there was like a reverse track where you put the needle in the center of the album. And it plays, as it spins, it plays a song the other way.
I found out that how long we've been without albums when my oldest daughter, who's in her 30s, asked me one time, because she and her husband got a record player.
Yep.
Do you put the needle at the front or the back? She didn't know because she hadn't done it. And I thought, whoa, we've come a long way now. But that's interesting. I'm trying to think too. I remember in the late 60s, early 70s, wherever they were getting into different vinyl and different plastic. I don't know if it was the Rolling Stones with their the one they did that right after Sgt. Pepper came out, the Majesty's Satanic
Majesty's Secret Request,
or something like where they're all lined up and it was 3D cover. Yeah. I don't know if that was a colored album or there was another one there, but when you find those now, it's like, they were trying to get our attention.
That's I look, when I was growing up and going to record stores every week and working to have money to go buy records, and I was fanatical about buying records because I needed to get this new single from The Clash, that was only available in the UK, but I had a record store in Chicago that I could go to, and they would save me those things, But then I would buy records just on the look of the sleeve.
Oh, sure.
And I had no idea what they sounded like, and record stores wouldn't let you go play records or anything like that. Like, you couldn't sample stuff, so you would buy stuff. And for years, I bought records that, from bands I'd never heard of. One of them,
they look good.
They look cool. I mean, the Guns N' Roses' first album was called Live Like a Suicide. It was an EP that they put out independently.
Right.
And, the LA scene then was all spandex and big hair. And here's this band from LA who flip over the record, and not only are they covering an Aerosmith song called Mama Kin, and I was living in Boston at the time, but they all didn't look like LA bands. And so you're like, these guys look kind of punk. So you grabbed it and you're like, and then you go home and listen to it and you're like, whoa. And I went back and bought 3 copies and gave them to friends going, you got to hear this band.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this band is amazing.
That, and especially now that there's a sort of a vinyl return or a revitalization, whatever it is, they really need to, I'm sure they've done it somewhere, album cover displays, because I know there's books of that, but I think people, depending on, again, their own experience with the albums, I mean, you kind of get it when you go to a record store and you flip through the bin and, you look at all these different artsy approaches. But I mean, I remember some of these groups, like Yes, used the same artist for whatever number of albums it was. They had a look. Others didn't. Others, it was totally
Steve Earle
different.
does the same thing. He uses a Chicago artist, Tony Fitzpatrick.
For every album?
For every album.
And I think things like that are kind of intriguing because I'm like you. I would be drawn to a creative cover, if for no other reason than you think, if they're that creative on the front, maybe it's on the inside too.
Well, sure. That
sometimes that
lot.
works, sometimes that doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, some bands will put too much into the cover art, not enough into the music.
It's all cover and no band.
I mean,
no record.
I have a lot of duds in a pile. but I also have a lot of masterpieces as well.
What is your musical habit? Playing albums or downloading or
I stream a bit, and then there's like nights where it's like, make a nice dinner and listen to records, you know. And that I still have record parties. Sometimes they're with myself, sometimes they're with other people. But there's nothing better than sitting down cross-legged and putting records on the turntable, you know.
Yeah, and just, enough of that one. Take it off.
But there's, like on New Year's Day, for the last 15 years, I have a thing called an all jazz kind of day.
This is not on the station.
This is at home, in my personal home.
I wasn't aware of that on CT. They're going jazz on one day.
I would love to do that. I always tell the DJs, because sometimes there's records that they don't like, and I go, look, if I had my way, it'd be Nick Cave into Miles Davis. But I got to give the people, got to give the people what they really want.
Yeah.
But I will listen to jazz records on New Year's Day as long as I possibly can until I have to go out or something like that, and then I'll hear something else. But I'll put on John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and it just kind of renews me for some reason.
You need to have when you're doing that, you need to have the sound off. Whatever that channel is, maybe there's more than one that plays Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh, all right, there you go.
Non-stop for New Year's Day,
and then put on Kind of Blue or Coltrane, and just
that'd be a good combination there. Well, how about this? We'll do a group association game with you. I'll just throw out the name of the band or the musician, and give me your quick synopsis of them. And you don't have to like them or whatever, but I think it's things that probably you played at your station. Elton John.
He's Elton John. It's he's so many records in the 70s, just one after another. Were just, there's that bottle of fine wine. Now some of his wines came out in the 80s. I don't
got a little sour, has it?
Got a little sour, but those records in the 70s, those ones that he did with Bernie Taupin, are just brilliant. They're pieces of art.
You sent me an email, I think, on the death of one of these guys, but Everly Brothers.
That's my mom. It's I think about them. I think about finding that record in my mom's collection. And I still listen to that record.
I was going to say, you talk about holding up well in time. There's when you do hear the Everly Brothers, and then you hear usually one of their hits. The harmony there's some mistake.
And the Beatles, I think more than Little Richard, it was the Everly Brothers that, if you go back and listen to early Beatles records, it's the Everly Brothers.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because they did cross
those harmonies, but I'm sure George Martin was into the Everly Brothers, and you can obviously tell with Paul, and possibly John. But I think George and Paul were really influenced by the Everly Brothers.
Chambers Brothers.
That's Time Will Come Today, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That was, I think, those are...
I don't know if they can be viewed as a one-hit wonder now, because they had a big album with that song, and it was psychedelic. But then you never really heard much from them.
Yeah, and I wasn't I can't say I've studied the Chambers Brothers. I know that song, and, to me, it seems as though, they were one of those first political bands in the sense of what was going on at the time, civil rights movement, and along with Marvin Gaye. Some of those records, subtly they were making statements.
Now let's go.
I love that.
Marvin Gaye. You guys play Marvin Gaye.
Oh yeah, well he's the closer.
He's the closer.
You're always going to get the girl when you put on a Marvin Gaye.
See, we're giving lots of information here today that people might really appreciate. Booker T and the MGs.
Again, one of those bands that influences bands today, and I was lucky to see Booker T play in Chicago when I was working at a radio station up there. We were doing they have a traditional, they stopped it, but at the time they did a free 4th of July concert in Grant Park. And
nice.
Booker T was one of the acts on there, and I was assisting the program director at the time to produce the show. So, when you meet people like Booker T, you're like, okay, I need you to go on at this time, and I need you over here. And he's
time is tight, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I think I actually said that, and he just kind of looked at me and laughed.
How many times I've heard that?
Because is that a request, you know? So, but Booker T is great. I'm so glad he's still around.
I don't know that you guys play this, but he's played everywhere. Johnny Cash.
We do play some Johnny Cash.
Okay.
Johnny Cash, I had an amazing experience seeing him before Rick Rubin started working with him. I saw the real Johnny Cash when they were doing like kind of barnstorming county fairs. I was in college in Massachusetts, me and my punk rock bud, Shred.
That was his name?
That was his name, Shred. And I was Mark Dark. And we discovered that he was playing at the Topsfield Fair.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing 2 shows, a matinee and a night show. And we couldn't go to the night show because we either had to work or there was another band we had to go see. It was $5 to get in.
Oh, great.
And it was all senior citizens.
Right.
And it was Johnny Cash, June Carter, June's sister, was it Mabel? No, Mabel. I can't remember.
That sounds right.
The Carter. And then their son, John Carter Cash. And it was like just a barnstorming thing. And me and my buddy Shred, we got the crowd into every song that John did. And at the end of the performance, and this is really amazing, he thanked us.
Oh, really?
And then after the because he was like, usually matinees we do 45 minutes, and they had played like 90 minutes.
Oh, wow.
He goes, because of those guys up there, we wanted to give them a real show.
Let's hear it for Shred.
Yeah,
Dark
exactly.
Mark or Mark Dark.
Mark Dark. But then afterwards, this was the kicker. This was like, this freaked Shred and I out, and it was changed our lives forever. We went to the merchandise booth that was being run by June Carter Cash.
Oh, really?
And just
like
a
CDs or
no, there were
cassettes?
CDs. It was cassettes and albums and hats, and I have the Johnny Cash show hat, trucker's hat. But she like grabbed our hands like a grandmother and like, "Oh boys, thank you so much for coming. John would love to see you guys." And she walked us to the tour bus that sits outside of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this black tour bus.
Yeah.
She opens the door and she's just like, "John, the boys are here." And you hear him go, "Come on in." And we went in, and of course he stands up, and we were like, we are
not worthy.
It was the Wayne's World moment. And he was a really amazing guy. And he was surprised that these kids with spiked hair were kind of coming into his show. And we told him, I said, "You're the original punk." Like, we all think of, and it didn't connect with him then. But then obviously Rick Rubin got a hold of him and said the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then he put out some amazing records before his death. So
I know. And that was,
Johnny Cash he's big in my heart.
The first time I was in the car coming back Springfield and up here and hurt. Yeah. And I honestly didn't know it was Johnny Cash initially, because that voice is so unmistakable in most of his records. But there was, it was late in life, and it was just so haunting. I mean, it was... And then you do kind of, that's Johnny Cash.
It's better than the 9 Inch Nails version.
Oh, it's I mean, and I hadn't heard that. Yeah. So
so the power of that song hit you.
Yeah, yeah.
We had already known the 9 Inch Nails song, and then we heard Johnny Cash do it. You were like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Well, good response on that one.
You hit the right one.
Yeah,
that's like my favorite story, and makes me go like, my life is okay. I've done pretty well in my life.
I have to. I don't know if I've shared this with our people, but you mentioned the tour bus. I have a story that was Willie Nelson, but it hasn't got the happy ending that you did. I worked at the transit district, and I had a manager who was a kind of a guitar fan and Willie Nelson fan. Well, we had an ethanol bus program at the time, and in Peoria, and we thought we'll get Willie. Willie was going to be at the fair, Heart of Illinois Fair. And Roxy Baker would probably be thrilled that I mentioned that, because we talked about the fair and its problems and so forth. But anyway, at this time, we're talking about 25 years ago or more. Willie Nelson
was a little baby then.
Oh, yeah, she was a little baby, but I wasn't. And Willie Nelson was playing away. And the manager said, is there any chance we could get Willie Nelson to, endorse the ethanol program? And I thought, Farm Aid. He does Farm Aid every year with Neil Young and all those guys. This is perfect, corn on the bus. We'll get the corn bus over there. Well, one thing leads to another. We parked the bus. We're told we can park the bus by the stage, behind their bus. And the idea was Willie would come out, we'd get a picture, boom, we're done. Well, Willie never came out.
Not until set time.
He went and said, and then the manager kept coming running over and tell us he'll come out afterwards. Okay, well, what do I do? I got to run back, tell the manager he's coming out afterwards, you know. So then after the show, he does a nice little show, and we watched that. And then he's back on the bus. And then all of a sudden, all these people start appearing, lining up for the bus. And they all have stuff with them. And I asked somebody, what is this? Oh, these are, this is a tradition with Willie Nelson. It's his fans come up and they give him something, or if he wants it, I guess, I don't know, blankets or, whatever these trinkets were. And the manager comes over to me and says, I don't think Willie's going to come out, but if you want, you can get in the line and talk to him when you go in. Maybe you can get him to come out. So now this is getting complicated. So now I get in line behind all these other people, and the woman in front of me is talking to me, and she's got a big quilt or something. She's going to give Willie, and she goes, what do you have for Willie? And I go, well, and I explain, I want the picture, and I'm with the bus. And she kind of looks over at the corn bus, and boy, he says, after what happened in Massachusetts, I bet he won't come out. I go, what happened in Massachusetts? Well, a fan knocked him over, apparently, inadvertently, whatever. But so Willie stays on the bus now.
Wow.
And I think, well, okay, I'll take my shot. Here we go, the lineup. We get finally to the doors are there. The lady in front of me and me are the last ones there. The guy comes out. It's coming kind of rainy or muddy. The ground's wet. And the guy just slams the door shut and says, we got to go. And they take off.
Yeah.
Me and the lady with a quilt. We don't get to see Willie. I have to go back and tell the manager, Willie left. So no great we're not worthy moment. I still love Willie Nelson, and he's still touring.
You would have loved him if you actually got on the bus, because there's stories about being on his bus.
I got this close, but no cigar.
If you got on the bus, you would have had a cigar.
Who would you go see? Now, one of the things, and I don't mean to be unkind to these groups or these individuals that go on touring, because as you said, that's really the only way to make money. But some of these guys are already multimillionaires. I think perhaps, and I don't know this because I'm just guessing, you have a connection with the audience. It's what you want. I mean, look at Bob Dylan. I mean, surely he could stop if he wanted to. I don't think he can. I think it's just you're driven. Who would you go see if you had your choice of anybody that's out there now that you haven't seen?
I haven't seen Clapton. I don't know what it would be like to see him because he's got some health issues.
No, he does. Oh, okay.
I know he's got some arthritis problems, and I know
that's not good.
I think he's also got hearing problems, and I'm not positive about that, but I've heard rumors about that. I think it'd be nice to see Clapton. I mean, he's at that point,
right?
Where but then Tom Petty was the first rock concert I ever saw.
Oh, really?
And I, by myself, like without the parents. And I saw him over the years, and I didn't go to Wrigley Field. I didn't go to Champaign. And you kind of go, oh, well, Tom's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't know.
No.
You don't. So that's a hard one because I've been blessed to have seen Van Morrison. I've been blessed to have seen the Stones. I've been blessed to see Paul McCartney. You see these artists, I've seen Buddy Guy. I never saw Muddy Waters, but I've seen Buddy Guy many times. So I've been blessed where I can get to see the artists that I want to see if I really do. So I don't know. Right. I don't know if I can just
no great yearning. Oh, I got to see this one person.
I always have a yearning to see Nick Cave. He's one of my favorite artists.
And he's still touring?
He still tours. He still puts out records. I mean, he's young. I mean, comparatively, I think he's like 56 or something like that.
That's young nowadays. I mean, that's the weird thing about the concert world, I guess. And that's the other thing. And maybe this will change. Maybe with the work that you guys are doing to introduce new acts and hopefully get them going to a level, because it is harder, as you said, for them.
Well, the band like the Revivalists, who 3.5 years ago opened up for the Congos on the riverfront, and that was a band that we had heard and believed in, and they didn't play for very much money.
Right.
And they kind of blew the Congos away with their performance, and now they're at this point where they're like one of the biggest bands in America right now, and touring. They're selling out 1,500-seat arenas, and that's a band that we believed in 3.5 years ago and have now kind of, blown up around the world, around America. At least
if they came back, they'd be
the Civic Center
headliners.
Theater headliners. Oh yeah, I mean they sold out the Castle Theater in Bloomington on St. Patrick's Day last year, and I'm sure they're coming back. I know they're working on a new record, and probably this summer they'll be back.
The Castle Theater in Bloomington, pretty good venue.
Beautiful venue, beautiful theater. I wish we had a Castle Theater. They always say, I wish we could get WWCT in Bloomington. I go, I wish I could bring the building and put it in Peoria.
Well, you do tell them that you can get it online, of course.
They do know that. But, I mean, obviously, people are driving around.
Right.
And that's really the good thing is now with Alexa, if you say, Alexa, play WWCT, it'll play it. She does it, as does the Google Home.
Well, very good.
So that's good because you can't buy a radio for your house anymore. If you think about it.
You can?
It's hard to find one.
I didn't think of that.
But with these Google Home things and the Alexa Echo, they're there, and you just say that play WWCT, and boom, My tuner in my living room has a radio. There's no radio in my bedroom. My phone wakes me up.
Right.
Ann can play music, and so it's
the world in which we live.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the days where you have a clock radio.
No, that's true. Well, if you've got a dog, you don't need a clock radio because that dog is usually, time to go. Let's go out here. And it may not be your time to go, but it's definitely theirs. Well, hey, Mark, I think we're, what's coming up? Because you guys are always planning things. You've got holiday stuff, or what's coming up at CT?
Well,
or here in town.
Well, we got our CT Snowball, which we do every year, and we do it to benefit the Children's Hospital.
Got it.
We do a concert, and that's going to be December 13th. Vance Joy, who again one of those guys that we put in the field house on a cold January night, and he blew up, and is opened up for Taylor Swift at Soldier Field, and he's a great Australian singer-songwriter. Moon Taxi's on the bill, and J.D. McPherson, who's on Conan tonight.
And where is that?
That's going to be at the Civic Center Ballroom.
Okay.
And so that's our big kind of December kind of event. We've got some giveaways and promotions that we're doing. World Class Rock's going to give you a World Class Rock in December.
Or an actual rock?
Well, a diamond. Get it?
Okay. I was thinking more like,
and then I'm already working on March and summer. We're talking and trying to find out because, we have to be 3 or 4 months ahead of everything.
Is that hard?
It is. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of,
I mean, are you competing against similarly sized venues? Or
I think it's more cities. I mean, again, it's still work to convince artists that Peoria is worthy of stopping it. Because they can go to St. Louis on Wednesday, Indianapolis on Thursday, Chicago on Friday, Milwaukee on Saturday, Minneapolis on Sunday, and then they're heading west, or that thing. So, and those have more people.
Right.
And so you're constantly trying to convince them that, hey, you can do very well here. And people will come out and buy tickets for your concerts and stuff.
And I think depending, of course, on their familiarity with the Midwest or Peoria or cities like Peoria, there is a tendency, I think sometimes, and I've heard this only because my family's in the East, and they'll used to, not now, but, Peoria, that's like, and I think the mental picture they would describe to me, and I don't mean to cast aspersions, but it's a town the size of like Farmington.
Yeah.
A much smaller place. That's not Peoria. I mean, not to say Peoria's any big city by any means, but there's a perception, I think, that it's smaller than it is.
Yes.
And, of course, Peoria used to be, and again, we don't always play in the past, but I think it always was larger than life because there was so much money here. You had the booze here. You had, a lot of development here. It was the second largest city in Illinois.
And I think they're trying to, I think everybody wants Peoria to grow. I think there's an opportunity for it to grow. And I hope CT is part of that growth and that we're helping that, it's drawing people to come here. And I think what things are happening in downtown, and there's discussions about taking West Main Street and building that up, which is a beautiful neighborhood.
Right.
You know, we want to be part of all that stuff. We want to make it so that young people, when they're looking to move somewhere for a job, that they have that opportunity, and they're like, oh, there's a great radio station. They have good concerts.
Warehouse District.
Yeah,
whatever.
Warehouse District, great restaurants, cool bars and stuff like that. You know, it's all about the experience, you know, and I think, you know, I may not be here when it happens, but I hope that, you know, I can be part of that and
lay the groundwork,
put some, you know, DNA in there and have people be part of it, you know.
Well, this sounds like a worthy goal, and we wish you well, Marc. Give us your times that you're on in the morning.
6 to 10, Monday through Friday.
6 to 10, Monday through Friday at WWCT 99.9, and you can ask Alexa for all the information. You know, actually, she won't talk to me, but that's all right. I still have a flip phone, so what are you gonna do?
What band would you go see if you could right now?
I think Neil Young.
Neil Young,
because I've never seen Neil Young. I know the other guys were here at the Civic Center, and that was funny because Graham Nash. We did a phone interview, and you may have spoken to him too. You know, they lined it up, and so I got to talk to him. And the first thing he says is Agatucci still doing good? And I was like, what? And he has his wife's from Peoria, you know, and they live in Hawaii. So she doesn't get back too often for Agatucci.
Yeah, but she knows Agatucci.
Yeah, but the idea that, you know, the 70-year-old rocker from the distant past would know about Peoria's pizza place was a little unnerving. But, you know, that's I think Neil Young would. And I just found out that Neil Young, I didn't know this because I just never learned about it, is a huge model railroad guy.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can see it, but to the point that he actually developed, and again, I don't know what all the details are. It's online for you people who are interested. Lionel, the train people, as we know from watching Santa watch those trains go around the tree, credits him with making digital developments that they use now on the latest toy trains.
Wow.
Toy train, model railroading. I mean, you know.
Wow.
So
And Neil Young, you mentioned Neil Young, I believe December 1st, we reported this today, he's going to have his archives online for free.
Oh, really?
I don't know the exact website. I can't remember it. But it was in our music news
archives
today.
Meaning what?
Like his concerts and his records.
Oh, my.
He's got this whole archival thing that he's been collecting. He tapes every show, and he's always putting out things.
Yeah.
He's you may not know about it. I mean, it's like sometimes it's so much that it's like, Neil, we're just playing your last record. We just got to it. You know?
I'm still listening to Southern Man. You know?
So, yeah, that's if you're a Neil Young fan. Google it. And,
see?
And you'll
just a
find
fountain
out
of information. You can hear more on CT during the weekday mornings. Well, man, thanks for coming on, Marc.
Thanks. I love coming down here.
Well, this is your home away from home right here in the palatial Journal-Star studio. Thanks to Matt Dayhoff for getting us on the air.
Awesome.
And this is Steve Tarter, and we'll see you next time.